Alright, so this is going to be my full and final review of the DID Genesis Rebuildable Atomizer. And before I go into the device itself, it can be found at e-vapes.gr, and it's a Greek website, and it's sold by a man named Jim, and I'm going to butcher your last name, Jim, Damianidis? Anyway, you can get in touch with Jim on ECF, or the e-cigarette forum, and yeah, the device itself, it just comes with the atomizer and all the necessary components to build it, which include O-rings, the center post, the bottom cap, which houses your built-in 510 atomizer connection. And when I say built-in, I mean that the 510 connector is literally machined into the bottom cap, so there are potentially zero issues with, let's say you drop your mod and it breaks off the connector like is possible with the original ScubaGen V3 or the Line V1, or Line V2 as well, actually, and the Line stainless steel. But you get that, you get your tank section, and in this case this is the standard DID, which is a 3 milliliter capacity, versus the short DID, which is a 2 milliliter capacity. And then you get your I'm not sure if it's a top cap, I call it just the post housing, which is this ring right here with the threads, and included in that is the little plastic insulator right there that is under the post, the ground screw. The post feeds up and screws into that plastic insulator, so you can adjust the height of the center pin to make it sit flush with your mods, because Genesis atomizers, they don't need any space because you have airflow that's fed through the top cap instead of the connector itself. And then you get 3 of these little brass screws, but as you can see, I ordered spare screws so I could put a 4th on there, because usually there are 2 on top which secure your wire, and 1 on the bottom to secure the post to keep it from moving. But by adding the 4th in between the 2 on top and 1 on the bottom, it makes the 3 on the bottom essentially one solid unit. So all you have to do is screw down the top screw, because when there are only 3 screws and you tighten down your top screw, it can end up loosening the bottom screw, not the bottom, the middle screw rather, and basically bending your post as it continues to turn the wire, which can damage your coil. But I think adding the 4th screw was a really helpful addition to me. And then right here you can see the pretty large fill hole, and with the fill hole there's usually a fill screw that goes in there that's the same threading as the ground screw, but I've chosen to omit that from my DID as I find it unnecessary, and it really inhibits wicking, which in turn inhibits vapor production and flavor. So I choose to keep it out and keep my DID at home or facing vertically when not in use at all times. So then the last part that's included is the DID top cap. And the DID top cap, as you can see here, it comes stock with a 3/64 of an inch air hole, which, or maybe it's the metric equivalent of 3/64 of an inch, but when I tried that bit, it fit pretty flush in there. Though my personal preference for air holes is 1/16 of an inch, so I bored mine out. And also, what's notable about the top cap is that, let's see if you can see. Come on, autofocus. Well, instead of it just being a hole, it's actually machined down about 5 millimeters, half a centimeter. And there's a little, it looks like a washer almost, but it's a stopper for your drip tips, so your drip tips don't sit any lower in the cap than there's room for. And oh, come on. Alright, autofocus isn't going to work here, but I'm going to have to take my word for it. And I gotta say that the drip tip hole size fits even the largest and the smallest, for that matter, drip tips available. This is a Super T mini polished contoured drip tip, and I find these to be one of the wider board drip tips as far as putting them into top caps and atomizers. And like on my Zen Standard and AYS and Z.EG, for instance, these just barely fit, and I have to really crank on it to get it in and out. But as you can see, nice, easy, almost perfect fit. Great. One thing about this hole, even though it does have some practical implements that I'll talk about later, it does not allow you to use trippy tips in the top cap, which for most isn't a problem, but personally I really enjoy glass drip tips and I would like to be able to use them, so I'm going to see about having something done to lengthen that. But anyway, that's the basic construction of the did. And inside the tank is your center post housing, which is a stainless steel channel that your brass post feeds up through, so your liquid isn't in contact with the brass post, which has the benefit of keeping juice away from brass, because brass can leach into the juice, and I've just read that it's generally unhealthy and unsafe. So, as far as technical design features, I really look for things that stand out in a Genesis atomizer or Genesis hybrid before I make an investment and go ahead and buy one. And as for the did, what stands out about it is a lot of things. First off, it is probably the only commercially available Genesis atomizer that you can buy on a website that's almost always available in stock for purchase. And for the price, $95, you don't have to run the risk of getting screwed in a co-op, waiting 6 months for your device to be made and sent to you, and you're guaranteed the device. And like I said, they ship from Greece, and for me, shipping from Greece to the US, and shipping is free, it's included in the price of the did. I think I waited 9 or 10 days for it, and really efficient shipping. You get a tracking update from Jim, and when the device hits the US, you get the ability to track it via USPS. So, other thing that stands out is the brass contacts in the center post. Brass has vastly improved conductivity over stainless steel, and I've read a lot of people like bullshitting and saying that they would really like a stainless steel center post, and that seems totally counterintuitive to me, as stainless steel is far less conductive, and even though you have to polish your brass every once in a while if you get juice in there, I mean, you take your Dremel to it, give it a quick buff, or just wipe it once with a Cape Cod and it's good to go. Come on. There's no need for a stainless steel post, Jim. I think the brass is perfect as it is. And another area of complaint that I've read about is people preferring to wrap their resistance wire around the center post rather than using the nuts. And frankly, 2010 called and they want their silver stock post back. It makes no sense. First off, the way that the nuts in the center post affect the overall performance, first off, they lock in your resistance wire much more efficiently than just wrapping it around the post. So you're guaranteed a perfect connection, which really unleashes the full potential of the brass contacts, which is huge. It's huge in Genesis atomizers, it's huge in silica atomizers, it doesn't matter. Conductivity is a huge point of interest in overall performance, and I think you need to maximize that with whatever system you're using. So wrapping it around the post, bad as far as conductivity. Next up, like I was saying about the stopper in the top cap, the idea is that, if you can see, it lines up right to where the bevel starts. And inside the cap you can see that the stopper is maybe 3 millimeters above where the top post or the top nut ends. So the gap between the vapor chamber, or the inside of the top cap, and the mouthpiece itself is very narrow. which forces air to circulate around the coil, thus getting more airflow over your coil, thus producing more vapor, giving you a less airy draw, and ultimately better flavor and an overall better vaping experience. So when you just use your post, vapor goes in, vapor goes up, and that's it, rather than vapor goes in, around, and then up, which is excellent. So for those of you using the post, I strongly advise you be patient with your did and you learn how to do it the proper way, because you're going to get the best results that way. Bottom line. Alright. Next up, feature that stands out about the did above any other Genesis atomizer that I've seen is the finish. I have juice in my hand, so I'll give this a little wipe down, but the finish is perfect. It's beautiful. It's a really, really well polished stainless steel finish, and it just looks excellent. I've used my did on my stainless steel GGTB, and the outer diameters are almost perfect, and it looks awesome on there. I've used it on my stainless steel GGTS with a stainless steel top gap. Perfect on there. Currently I have it on my stainless steel polished Precise Plus 18500, because I like the rhodium contacts in here, and I tend to use my GGs for my ODs. But looks good, connects perfectly, and with the adjustable center pin, the way it sits flush with the connector, it almost looks like a hybrid. I've had people mistake it as a hybrid because it's just so flush, and it looks like one single device rather than a battery mod and then a rebuildable atomizer, and it's just perfect. It looks great, works great. I have no real criticism of the did as of now, and not to like talk myself up, but like I'm a fairly discerning Genesis atomizer user at this point. I've owned a dozen maybe rebuildable Genesis atomizers, including Katana, Orion, several Zens, a Scuba Gen, Sturm G-Tank, G-Tank US, a few lines, the Orion, if I didn't mention that, a few others, and Hellfire Mini. And the did really stands out above all of them. Not above all of them, it does have some aspects that could add, that could be tweaked by the user, but are definitely not anything that you can't do at home by yourself with zero machining or engineering expertise. Like, I'm a 19-year-old kid, and I bored out my air hole by myself in my garage with a $6 titanium-coated drill bit I bought. It's really not difficult. And as for the airflow with the stock cap, the 3/64 of an inch, flavor is better, throat hit tends to be better, and vapor production is significantly lower. But my reasoning behind the 1/16 of an inch air hole is that it opens up the playing field with the did to allow for two distinct but uniquely two distinct possibilities of draw styles that offer some significant pluses and minuses over the other style. So obviously it's quick, short drag. So quick, short drag. Tons of vapor. Tons of vapor, not a lot of throat hit. The flavor is there, it's clean, it's crisp, but it's not dense and full like some might expect from a conventional silica atomizer or their stock dids. But then the other option is a long, slow, controlled, steady drag, as in so as you can see, vapor appears much denser, and I can tell you flavor is much stronger and much fuller, and throat hit is much more significant. So 1/16 of an inch, really excellent. Best of both worlds in my opinion, between vapor production, vapor, and throat hit, if you want to throw that in there. So that's that. And some other points of interest with the did. The fact that replacement parts are readily available on the site. I don't know if you've owned a Katana or an Orion, but I defy you to find replacement parts for your Orion or your Katana, especially if you live in the US. It's difficult to get a hold of the makers, even harder to get parts from them. And if you want to go ahead and have them machined yourself, then you need to find a CNC shop that does metric threading, which isn't an issue in itself typically, but it's another hoop to jump through there. And the did, I want another top cap. I'm going to go online and I'm going to order another top cap, and it's going to be here in 10 days. And that's a whole lot easier and less expensive than having one machined, and that's a huge plus for me. But I'm really happy with the did overall. And then another really outstanding feature is the wick hole. The wick hole is huge, man. It's big. I would say it's close to 3 full millimeters in this, maybe even a little bit bigger. And as you can see in my wick, I have a fairly skinny wick itself with a huge hole in the center. I mean, the hole in the center is bigger than my current Zen wicks. And as you can see, the autofocus is important for this one, but alright, well, piece of paper down, hold it upside down, and juice is already dripping out of the coil. And when I vape this, I can keep it vertical, and it'll wick and wick and wick and wick forever without any hot spots. Like, it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And that alone just makes it such an easier and more convenient vaping experience, especially with bigger battery mods, that it's just not comfortable to hold it up here all the time. You can just post it up at 4 or 5 o'clock and perfect. So huge wick hole, huge plus in my opinion. And the mini did, which is going to be comparable to, I'd say, the Hellfire Mini from the few screenshots that we've seen of it. Hopefully, I'm praying it's going to have the same sized wick as this thing, because if that's the case, then Jim, you can count me in for at least 2 of them, because the wick hole in this thing is just, it's fantastic. It wicks better than my Odysseus. I've never said that about anything, let alone a fucking Genesis atomizer. It just wicks and wicks and wicks. When I'm using a thin PG juice, and by the way, I always use 325 mesh, almost always. If I don't keep it vertical, it floods. If I keep it at horizontal, floods everywhere. It wicks damn well, which I guess is a great thing if you are chain vaping it or anything. But even if you're not, if you put the fill screw in, which limits the wicking, it just wicks consistently, and you're good to go. No overwicking. It's perfect. I'm really happy with the did, if you can tell. And for the price, $100, it's a steal. The quality of the machining is flawless. Every thread is like butter. The air hole lines up right over the wick. Scale-wise, everything is perfect. There are no jagged threads anywhere. There are no jagged, like, clear machining errors anywhere. The finish is perfect. Everything about it, I'm really happy with it overall, and really excited for the mini did. If the mini did wasn't coming out, I would, and I didn't have like a grip of other Jennies already, and I just can't afford another one, I would probably buy 1, maybe even 2 more dids, because they're available right now, and from what I hear, they're going to be readily available in the near future unless demand skyrockets, which I am anticipating, honestly, as word catches on about the device. But that's really all I have to say about it. Really, really solid atomizer. Flavor, I'd give it a 10, depending on draw style, but the potential is there for a 10. Vapor production, I would give it a 9, but a 10 in my book has to be something truly special, like groundbreakingly special. Throat hit, I'd give throat hit a 7, and that's with the Hellfire Mini coming in at a 9 and a like 36 watt Odysseus 1.1 ohm coil at 6 volts coming in at a 9.5, and again for a 10 I would really need to see something insane. But yeah, it's really solid. Don't let my number scale be too critical, because it doesn't change how I feel about the overall performance. And the DID is a synergistic, like all of those factors combined, it's solid. And I'm really a sucker for polished stainless steel. As you can see, I went ahead and polished my Precise, and man, I love Greek steel. Really happy with it. Thank you, Jim, and yeah, I hope the rest of the Genesis and the general PV community enjoys the DID. Enjoy.